Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of my brand new Wixo series. I'm going to call it Wixo Season 2 because I did do one before. But yeah, this is the start of this brand new series. I hope it's better than the old one. I think the old one was okay, but there are definitely some things that I want to improve on, and I hope that I can in this new season. And I hope it will be one that you all will enjoy. I do plan to take in a lot of community input, so if you do have any ideas for the next episode or any very far-fetching ideas for many episodes in the future, do be sure to go ahead and leave them in the comments. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get straight into it. So, to start off, we are of course going to be going with our signature exploring layer, and to kind of give it a little bit of a twist, we're actually going to be starting in a very different way than most standard Wixos that I've seen, and you will see how in just a second. So, first of all, though, we need to see where our people are going to pop up. Now, in this timeline, we're going to assume that there have been, humans evolving, and they have made their way around the planet, but they're kind of just tribalist. So, in the grey area, that doesn't necessarily mean there's no people there, but that just means that the people there are hunter-gatherers, and we are going to be simulating our first proper societies like farmers, agriculture popping up with removing the explored. And our first group to do this is going to be starting over here in the very northern regions of Mesopotamia. We have farming begin over here, and it immediately becomes extremely popular. And with this, trading begins, and we have our first societies popping up. And this allows people to actually make their first maps, which is what this explored layer will be simulating. And these people, their ideas spread rapidly, and they began to communicate with other people more, and this allows a lot of exploration. We have the Nile especially becoming a very big hub for farming, trading, and all of that good stuff. And we have boats emerging as well. I'm sure boats probably would have evolved slightly before this, but we have our first proper trade ships. And yeah, these people are, they're exploring around. Over here, we have our first peoples going ahead and moving over to Europe, starting off in Greece, and the most of the islands are discovered, bar Crete. Lost it for a second there. But yeah, we have these people going ahead and moving up, exploring into this Romanian area, not going over to the mountains, also fully discovering Bulgaria down here as well. And we have our first people going ahead and crossing into parts of Italy. I don't know if ships at this stage would be able to cross this, but we're going to assume they can. And they discover the Po Valley up here as well. So yeah, this is what our first people over here are doing. We also have the discovery of Cyprus. However, now we're going to see something happen that is a little bit different, and I feel this would simulate something that is a little bit more realistic. And we're going to be having cultures popping up. For anyone who doesn't know what a culture is is sort of a predecessor to proper societies and civilizations. This is kind of a group that shares similar I guess ways of life, and this kind of goes to show a little bit more collaboration. Maybe this is a big group that all works together in their own little I guess societies. But we have our first culture popping up over here in the Balkans. This culture is very renowned for fishing. They are a very naval culture, and this allows them to spread their. I don't know if control is the right word because it's kind of just regional groups controlling all of this, but they all somewhat work together, and they develop technology. That's another thing about this culture, or any culture, for instance. They all kind of develop and share technology. This is why it's sort of seen as a predecessor to actual civilization. Next up, this is going to be simulated using lighter colors than regular countries. But we next have a culture popping up over here in Iraq and southern Mesopotamia, I guess. And this culture is very big on farming. These guys love to farm, and they using their combined efforts are able to explore some more areas, and they even discover parts of Turkey or kind of establish connections in this region. We also have a small culture popping up over here in southern Greece. This is kind of similar to real life with the Mycenaeans. and this is also very similar to, I guess I'll call this one the Croatian culture because it did start there. These guys are very big on trade, fishing, all of that good stuff. These guys go ahead and move in, and over time we do see these cultures explore and spread slightly more. We have the Croatian culture discovering Malta and Sicily, and they then move in and sort of establish their control over this area. We also have this blue culture continuing to expand, and we're about to see something very interesting come out of this culture, as it is going to be the first culture to actually form somewhat of a religion. So yeah, this is a pretty large step for these societies, as before this, they didn't have any kind of binding factor. But yeah, we are going to see our first religion pop up with this culture here, and this is going to be I wouldn't really call it like a proper religion like we have in the modern day. It's sort of more so similar to things like Greek or Mesopotamian mythology, but this religion starts in the south and it becomes extremely popular and very rapidly spreads almost the whole way throughout, except for down near the sort of Egyptian areas. These peoples they have different traditions and they don't really align with this new religion. So that could create a little bit of an issue considering the fact that these people are all sort of under one culture here. But anyway, the culture of, I'm just going to call it the Mesopotamian culture. The Mesopotamian culture now expands their influence into Egypt, spreading their technology and forming a more united society. Over in the north, we have a lot more of this area be expanded upon. However, we do at this point see something happen which is quite a new thing. It's going to be some sort of ancient warfare. Essentially, what we see is the cultures are beginning to rival each other. They all have their own views, their own goals, and they kind of form some sort of collective where they view themselves as better than other groups. It's a very corrupted form of I guess racial hierarchy, but they view themselves as better and they do not like foreign cultures. Yeah, they're not very nice people. And you may have noticed that I'm moving over the Croatian culture, and that is because we have the early Greek culture actually move in and they begin conquering the lands of I don't really want to say tribes, but I think that's probably a good way to put it. The united sort of tribes over here that have formed this culture, and yeah, they invade the homelands area, spreading their culture. See how many times the word culture is said in this video. That's a fun challenge. And with their kind of core areas being wiped out, we essentially just see this culture fizzle out, and the Greeks sort of move in to capture some remnants of it. However, at this point, the Greek culture is beginning to, develop extremely far, and this is actually going to be leading to something. We are going to be seeing our first proper society form. While this culture is somewhat united, this is going to be the first instance of a group having a single leader going ahead and forming up. And that is, we are going to see this small Athenian country go ahead and pop up. These guys are our first proper civilization, and their values are very similar to that of their home culture. They kind of just absorb the surrounding regions into their country. And yeah, this is our first proper state. I'm going to go ahead and place their capital city right here. At this point, we also have some other cultures forming up, and very interestingly, we have one go ahead and form over here. This region of the Mesopotamian culture is not mostly aligned with the rest of it. This area has become very united under one religion. It's kind of just one big, very unstable country. However, this region in Egypt and the Sinai area, they are not big fans of this. So they officially go ahead and form their own country in order to be able to successfully break away from this. And so we have our lovely Egyptian country forming up. And this also extends into this Palestinian area over here, just like so. And this very heavily decreases the culture's range in this area, as we have them being kicked back heavily. And these guys' capital will be right here. But with this happening, the culture which sort of relied on a lot of food here begins to, think, oh, maybe if we make our consolidated societies sort of similar to these guys and the Greeks, maybe we could do better. Maybe this isn't the greatest thing. Maybe we should form our own kingdoms. So we have several proto-Mesopotamian countries form up. We have in the north, we have this golden one forming. We have this purple one forming near the center, and we have this light yellowish beige one in the south. And with this happening, the peoples sort of just, merge into their nearby countries. And with this happening, we effectively do see the dissolution of the Mesopotamian culture as it has now just kind of evolved into these countries. We do see a similar thing happening in the Greek culture. However, here it's very different. Basically, what we see happening is we just have all of this kind of just joining up with the Greek culture. They see themselves as Greek. Obviously, they wouldn't, they'd have a different word for it, obviously, but they do see themselves under this one identity, and due to that, they are very happy to join up with this country. They just see this as a better form of being Greek rather than this. Um, However, one thing this does lead to is we do have a new northern Turkish country going ahead and forming up, and this is a sort of separate thing. It forms as a trading country. They have their capital city right where Istanbul would be, and with that, we do somewhat also see the dissolution of this culture. So now we have actual proper countries forming up. What is the first thing that they're going to do? Well, they're going to fight each other, of course, because that's what we do. Um, Mostly in Mesopotamia, basically what we see happening is all of these countries, they kind of realize, we've consolidated. We want to take over the lands that our collective people once lived in that are now under these separate states. So, very specifically, we have this country down here quickly moving up and invading this purple country, burning the capital city and committing the first ever atrocities. That's very, very not good. I'm not happy with you. But, what can I do? These guys, they are proving to be very militaristic. This is kind of our Sparta. These guys are very aggressive. Over in Turkey, we have a new country forming up in the south, and this one is built around fishing. This is kind of some of the last remnants of the Greek culture, and they also have a base of operations in Cyprus. Their capital is going to be in this bulge area right over here, and these guys quickly spread around. But going back to what I said at the start of the video about how, there are not necessarily only people here, there are people all over the place, we are actually going to be seeing new areas consolidate and move away from hunter-gathering and form societies. And where are we going to be seeing this? We're going to be seeing it in two places. I don't want to do too many because we're obviously going to have to focus on each of the areas, and I don't want to split my attention too much, but we're going to be seeing two areas. The first area is something that is very similar to what I did in my first Wixo season. We are going to be seeing a Chinese, I guess, culture pop up. It's not going to be split like the other ones. This is just going to be one consolidated thing. These people develop farming and they begin spreading it all around this area, this southern Chinese region, very lush, and it makes it extremely easy for all of these guys to just spread. And yeah, they're having a lovely time. So we have. I'm just going to cut straight to our first countries forming because while this stuff was going on, I'm sure we had things going on over here. We have this beige country going ahead and popping up. We have this dark blue country over here, and we have this somewhat pale green country in the south. Now, something a little different that these guys have to, I guess, the Middle Eastern somewhat cultures. Those guys are way more consolidated in societies than these guys. This group, they're kind of just full of warlords. Like it's a country but it's not consolidated at all, which is something that differs heavily from these guys over here. So these guys are not very stable. They don't have proper government structure values that were sort of set up by the ancient cultures over here. These guys just have the philosophy of, we're going to do whatever we want. I really hope we don't collapse. And I'm sure that's going to work out amazingly and it won't cause a bloodbath. Very good. But we are going to be looking at our final region of cultures popping up, and we're actually going to be having it in America. One thing that I think would be interesting is natives, and we'll have to see if they act the same or differently than real world natives. But we have two distinct regions. I lied. It's not one, it's two. We have our first one popping up down here in the southern United States, around the Louisiana area. No countries form up here for now. And our second one is relatively close by. It forms in this central Mexican region. And yes, these guys are a little behind the Chinese and I guess Old World, even though I guess China would be considered the New World. But yeah, these guys are the most ahead. And we're gonna have a couple more small countries popping up now. We have this orange one going ahead and forming in central Italy. Their capital is going to be right on the coast here. This is somewhat a remnant of that Croatian culture. However, that thing died out. It's probably been several hundred years. I don't know if I'm going to do a proper timeline like I did in my first season, but if I am, then we're definitely still in the several thousand BC times. And we are going to have one more country pop up before we have another event. We're going to have this extremely tiny North Turkish country. These guys really aren't that stable. The only reason they formed is because a king in this region took over a small tribe or small proto country, I guess, in this area. And with that, he was like, yes, I'm going to form a country. But one final event we're going to be seeing is the continued expansion of the Iraq country. These guys are hungry, they're very aggressive, and they have their eyes set. Whoa, whoops. They they have their eyes set on this country up here, and they really want that land. So they quickly launch an invasion, and this is our first proper war. That other one was they kind of just moved in and destroyed everything. But this one, these guys actually have like a battalion of soldiers now, and they speed run to the capital. They burn it again. I mean, I'm not surprised. These guys, they love burning. They do be burning, but they burn it. That just collapses this country, and rip, you are now dead as well. So, well done. I'm sure you won't collapse. I mean, you are under one religion, so you have that going for you. We'll check back on you in the next episode. But speaking of that, that will be the end of the first episode of this brand new series. I really hope you guys did enjoy. Once again, any ideas for episode 2, please do leave them in the comments once again. I am very much willing to take as much input from you guys as possible, because I do genuinely want this series to be community driven. I want you guys to be able to, if you have ideas, I want you to be able to input them in, because I think that is very cool. But anyway, I will see you guys in the next episode, which should hopefully be dropping before the end of this week. I do want this to be a relatively fast-paced series. But yeah, I'll see you guys then.